Hello, today I'm going to read Mr. Lazy by Roger Hargreaves. I'm using again the old version of the book. I like the old version. You can see in the older books, you can see his felt tips more on the main characters, and even on the cover, he seemed to have a lot of trouble with the pink pen for some reason. So it kept running out. Seems a bit patchy. So Mr. Lazy, so here we go. This is done in 1976. Mr. Lazy lives in Sleepyland, which is a very lazy-looking and sleepy-like place. The birds in Sleepyland fly so slowly they sometimes fall out of the sky. The grass takes so long to grow it only needs cutting once a year. Even the trees are lazy-looking and sleepy-like. And do you know what time everybody gets up in Sleepyland? There's the bird falling out of the sky. Find out what time do they get up. The answer is they don't get up in the morning. They get up in the afternoon. And incidentally, this is what a Sleepyland clock looks like. Everything takes so long to do, there's only time for 4 hours a day. There's the special clock. 4 numbers: 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. Anyway, this story starts with Mr. Lazy being fast asleep in bed in Sleepyland. They call that being slow asleep. He spends rather a lot of time in bed. It's his favourite place to be. And there he is. I think he's going to have to be a bit careful with that rug because he might trip over. And there's a groovy pink wallpaper with flowers. He opened his eyes, yawned, yawned again, and went back to sleep. There he is, yawning again. He's going back to sleep again. Later, Mr. Lazy opened his eyes again, yawned again, and went back to sleep again. Oh dear. It's going to be a very boring story, isn't it? Oh no. Much later, Mr. Lazy got up and went to make his breakfast. We say breakfast, although really it was tea time. He put the kettle on to make some tea. Kettles take 2 hours to boil in Sleepyland. Then he toasted a slice of bread. Bread takes 3 hours to go brown in Sleepyland. Toast never gets burnt there. There he is, up to make his breakfast. He had a very big nose then. Later on, when Roger drew him, his nose got a bit smaller. Well, maybe it's because he's bending down. When he was waiting for his kettle to boil and his bread to toast, Mr. Lazy went into the garden of Yawn Cottage, which was where he lived. He sat down on a chair, and you can probably guess what happened next. That's right, he yawned again, and went to sleep. There he is, in his garden. I always love these cottages that Roger drew. They're so nice, don't they? Suddenly, he woke up with a jump, which is something that doesn't happen very often to Mr. Lazy. And the reason he woke up with a jump was because of a noise. "Wake up," he said to the noise. "Wake up, wake up, wake up." There was 2 men standing in front of him. Oh, well, we didn't expect that, did we? Unless you've read it already. "I'm Mr. Busy," said one of the men. "And I'm Mr. Bustle," said the other. "Come along now," said Mr. Bustle busily. "We can't have you sleeping all day," added Mr. Busy, bustling Mr. Lazy to his feet. "But who are you?" asked Mr. Lazy. "We're Bustle and Busy," they replied. "Oh," said Mr. Lazy. Now, I bet if you haven't read this one, you might think it's that blue Mr. Busy, Mr. Man, but no. He was actually called Mr. Busy and Mr. Bustle. And obviously Roger must have liked the name and thought I could use that for another Mr. Man. That's the original Mr. Busy, Mr. Bustle. There was no Mr. Bustle, though. But there you go. We had Mr. Rush instead. Come along now, said Mr. Busy. We haven't got all day. But, said Mr. Lazy. No time for buts, said Mr. Busy. Or ifs, added Mr. Bustle. There's the wood to chop, and the beds to make, and the floors to clean, and the coal to get, and the windows to polish, and the plates to wash, and the furniture to dust, and the grass to cut, and the hedges to clip, and the food to cook, and the clothes to mend, added Mr. Busy. I don't think Mr. Lazy's very happy about all that. Oh dear. Oh dear, groaned Mr. Lazy in a daze. The wood to clean, and the beds to get, and the floors to cut, and the coal to cook, and the windows to make, and the plates to mend, and the furniture to chop, and the grass to wash, and the hedges to dust, and the clothes to clip. Oh, he got it all completely wrong. He was in such a daze. Oh dear. Then Bustle and Busy set Mr. Lazy to work, chopping and making and cleaning and getting and polishing and washing and dusting and cutting and clipping and cooking and mending, not to mention all the fetching and carrying. Poor Mr. Lazy. There he is, doing all the different chores. So there's a bit of coal there, there's the plates, and there's the wood to chop, and oh dear. He's trying to do two things at once there, I think. Got a hammer in one hand and a cloth in the other, while the broom's balancing on his back. Now they said, when he'd finished, it's time for a walk. And off they set on the longest walk Mr. Lazy had ever been on. Mr. Lazy is one of those people who never walks when he has a chance of sitting down, and never sits down when he has a chance of lying down. And as you can see, there he is walking, but I think Roger's felt tip is running out yet again. Oh dear. But this day he had no choice. They made him walk for miles and miles and miles, until he felt his legs must be worn right down to his body. Poor Mr. Lazy. I love the hills that Roger draws, and the little paths. There he is. He's almost got his eyes shut. Do you think he's sleepwalking almost? There he goes. When they arrived back at Yawn Cottage, Mr. Busy said, "Right, now for a run." "Oh no," groaned Mr. Lazy. "When I blow this whistle," said Mr. Bustle, producing a whistle, "you've got to start running. As fast as you can," added Mr. Busy. Mr. Lazy groaned a deep groan and closed his eyes. Mr. Bustle put his whistle to his lips. Whee! Actually, I'll do a better whistle on that. Whistled the whistle. And there he is, blowing the whistle. It says wee, so that's it, but the whistles. Anyway. Went the whistle. Poor Mr. Lazy started to run, but his legs weren't getting him anywhere. He opened his eyes and looked down to see why. And the reason his legs weren't getting him anywhere was because he was sitting on a chair in the garden, and there was no sign of Mr. Busy and Mr. Bustle. It had all been a terrible dream. And the whistle was the whistling kettle boiling in the kitchen. Oh, wow. So that's a surprise. Mr. Lazy heaved a sigh of relief. And then he went into the kitchen and sat down to have his breakfast and to think about his dream. But you know what happened next, don't you? There he is. I think he's going to fall asleep again. He's got a painting of a ship in the background there. So I think he's gone to sleep again. "Wake up, Mr. Lazy! Wake up! Wake up! Wake up!" And there's the ending. Also, you can see an advert for a large poster of the Mr. Men. Oh, I had that as a child. It was brilliant. You could go right away around almost nearly 2 walls in a bedroom. It was a really good poster. And there's all the characters on the back in those days. That was all of Roger's original Mr. Men. There you are. That was Mr. Lazy. I'll do another one next week. And thank you very much. Bye for now.